Hey, it's Kyle here. First I want to apologize, it's been a while since I've done a video on this channel. Just been really busy with work lately, and I had a couple ideas for videos, and when I try to develop them, they just didn't really pan out. But good news is, I had an idea for a video, and I think it's going to be I really like this idea a lot, so I'm excited to do this video. I want to talk about my 5 favorite book series of all time. Before I get into my top 5 list, I do want to mention, I know a lot of people that follow me on this channel follow me because of a lot of Star Wars videos I've done on this channel and other channels. So if you're interested, I recently did a book review for a Star Wars book on reread books. So I'll put the link to that book review in the description box below. So if you love Star Wars books or you're interested in learning more about Star Wars books, be sure to check out that book review, which again, I'll put the link to that in the description box below. Now, for my top 5 list, I want to make clear a couple of items. First, this list is solely based on how I enjoy the series. I'm not saying these are the most literary acclaimed series of all times or the best written ones, or it's just my own personal enjoyment. The other thing I wanted to mention was, for the purpose of my list, the series needed to be 3 or more books. So if it was just a 2-book series, I didn't put it on the list because to me, that's not quite a series, and to me, a series needs to be 3 or more books. There's a lot of great duos of books, Pillars of the Earth and World Without End by Ken Follett's one great example. Love those 2 books, but it's only 2 books. You know, there's not a third yet. And for me, it almost has to be a trilogy to be a true series. So with that out of the way, I'll start with my top 5 list. Number 5, I'm sure everybody in the world has probably read this one or seen the movie, but The Hunger Games by Suzanne. The only reason this book is this series is number 5 and not higher on the list is because of the 3rd book in the trilogy. I love the first 2 books. I really did not like the last book at all. You know, I thought the first 2 books were great. The last book was barely okay in my opinion. So that really dragged that down the list. The first 2 books in this series, there's a good chance it could have been first or second if the 3rd book had lived up to my expectations. But like I said, I did really just not enjoy the 3rd book at all. I don't think there's any need for me to talk about the plot of this book, because I'm sure everybody, unless you've lived under a rock the last 10 years or been in a coma, you know all about The Hunger Games. So, number 5 on my list, The Hunger Games Trilogy by Suzanne. Number 4 on my list is the Dune Chronicles by Frank Herbert. I've actually just recently finished reading this series. It's one of those, you know, best well-known epics of science fiction, and I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and I always was somewhat ashamed, as big of a sci-fi fan as was, that I hadn't read the Dune Chronicles. So a couple years ago, I thought, you know, it's time, I need to do this. So I read the first book, Dune, absolutely loved it, and like I said, I just finished reading the last book in the Chronicles this month. Love it. The world building that Frank Herbert does in the series is amazing. The mythology, the religion, the politics, the society, I mean, everything is just mind-blowingly complex that he builds. If you're not really into all the details of how a society works, you know, all the backstories, Dune is probably not for you. You'll probably get you'll just get so bored with all the details. But if you are the type of person like myself who loves all those details about society, religion, and politics, then the Dune Chronicles is the series you'll just absolutely love. I mean, the world that Frank Herbert builds in the Dune series is just so complex and so well fleshed out that it's amazing. And that at the same time he's going through these details, he's moving the storyline along. And the amazing thing about the Dune Chronicles is covering several thousand years over the course of the books. You know, it's not like the Hunger Games are just covering a couple years. There's several thousand years are covered in this book series. So it's an amazing experience. I'm really grateful that I finally did take the time to read the Dune Chronicles. And anybody that's really into science fiction, I think you owe yourself to read the Dune Chronicles, because it's one of the best works of science fiction ever. So, Dune Chronicles by Frank Herbert. Of course, the first book is Dune. Number 3 on the list is very much like the Dune Chronicles, the Foundation novels by Isaac Asimov. Exact same thing for me with the Dune, you know. This is probably the other well-known epic science fiction series of all time, the Foundation novels, and I had never read them. So I happened to read these first before Dune. When I read them, my first reaction is like, you know, why did it take me so long to read these books? I missed out so much. the scenario that Asimov sets up in this series. He creates a new science, psychohistory, where basically in the future, in his future world he's created, in a future universe, they basically have created mathematics so complex that you can use it to predict the future in a very broad sense. So you can basically predict that empire is going to last a few thousand years and it'll collapse, and it'll take a couple thousand years of civil unrest and then something new will rise, and it basically predicts group actions to a very accurate detail. Can't predict what one individual will do, but can predict what a group does. And then Asimov uses the background of this science to cover basically the history of, again, much like the Dune Chronicles, several thousand years, and basically watches how this universe develops through the background of psychohistory. Each book covers a different period in the history. The characters he does are amazingly, they connect with you. Basically each book is new characters, but you quickly draw attachment to these characters. And that's probably the only reason why I rank the Foundation novels third on the list ahead of Dune, is I just felt more connected to the characters in the Foundation novels more than the Dune Chronicles. Now, that's not to say I didn't feel connected to the Dune Chronicles, so I was a little bit more in the Foundation novels. The Foundation novels also read a lot quicker than the Dune Chronicles, so that's a plus, but very interesting. Foundation novels, one thing I'll note, much like the Hunger Games, I wasn't too crazy how Asimov ended the series. The last book was not my favorite. I should note, the Dune Chronicles, I really enjoyed the last book. But this one, it was okay. I'd say maybe borderline good, but it wasn't quite the ending that was really at least satisfied in my opinion. But other than that, Foundation novels are absolutely brilliant. Strongly encourage you to check them out. Next up is one of my favorite authors of all time, Harry Turtledove. Harry Turtledove has written several series that I actually love, and I purposely decided I would only want to do one of his series on my top 5 list. I probably could have done another one if it borderline for number 5, like it's Hunger Games, but I decided let's just do one. And technically, this series I'm talking about is really 2 series, but I count it as one because basically it covers the same characters over a period of about 50, 60 years. And basically, Turtledove breaks them up into 2 mini-series. The first series is the World War series, and then about 20 years later, there's another set of books called the Colonization series, but it's the same set of characters, so I count it really as the same series. And the basic idea behind this, and if you don't know, Harry Turtledove is a very well-known writer in alternate history, but this series mixes in science fiction, and basically the idea behind this book is during the middle of World War II, the Allies are fighting the Axis powers, all that's going on just like it did in our world. And during the middle of this, an alien force invades Earth and tries to conquer the planet. So basically the entire idea behind this series is how do the countries in Earth, they're in the middle of fighting each other, react to this greater outside threat? How do they unite to fight each other when, just imagine, the Nazis having to, ally with the U.S. and Britain and the Soviet Union, and everybody has to suddenly start working together, but really not trust each other to face this greater threat to humanity. It's an amazing idea. It's very complex. So if you love science fiction, you'll love this series. If you love alternate history, you'll love this series. And if you just love fiction in general, I think you'll love this series, because one thing Turtledove's masterpiece is writing characters that you really, really care about. You feel so connected to the characters in Turtledove's books. It's amazing. And the great thing he does is he gives you different viewpoints. So he's writing, some chapters are based from Americans, civilians and soldiers. Then you get a viewpoint from actually one of the aliens. You'll get one from an alien foot soldier and then an alien commander. You'll get some viewpoints from the Soviet Union, people in that, and some people from Nazi Germany. So you're getting all these various viewpoints and figuring out, all right, how are these people thinking? And each one, it's just amazing. You draw these connections to them. And Turtledove does with all these books, but this series, I think he just does a masterful job. So this series is by far my favorite Turtledove series. So the World War series and the Colonization series, which I generally just term the World War series by Harry Turtledove, is an amazing series, and it's my second favorite book series of all time. And lastly, my number one favorite series of all time is the Thrawn Trilogy by Timothy Zahn. The entire reason I read Star Wars books, this series, my favorite book character of all time in this one, Thrawn, my favorite Star Wars character of all time is Grand Admiral Thrawn. This series is just amazing. It's so amazing that I own multiple versions of the books in this series. This is the 20th anniversary of the first book in the series that they just released about a year or two ago. It's annotated by the author. Had to get it. I have the original editions of the series released. They did a graphic novel version of the series. I have that. I love this series so much that it would be my dream come true. It might be the happiest moment in my life if they make the new Star Wars movies based on this series. I know it's going to happen. I probably put the chance of that happening less than 1%. But if they decided to make episodes 7, 8, and 9 in the Star Wars movies based on the Thrawn trilogy, it would be the happiest I would ever be in the rest of my life. I mean, I cannot top that feeling. It makes me so happy. This series is so amazing. Timothy Zahn is such a great author. The characters that he develops are mind-blowingly good, and kind of give you an idea that since the Return of the Jedi, they've probably written 60 to 80 Star Wars books to cover that time period, 30 or 40 years after Return of the Jedi. This series was one of the first books written. Several of the main characters that then dominate the rest of Star Wars literature after Return of the Jedi are introduced in this one series. So it's like all the books that come after this owe the debt to basically what Timothy Zahn started, you know. Sure, there's been some characters introduced since then, but the main characters, the book characters that everybody loves and cites as their favorite characters, almost all of them were introduced in this 3-book series. When you think, you know, there's 60, 80 books, this one series is by far the most dominant presence in that huge amount of literature. Is just very impressive. All Star Wars books really owe their existence to the Heir of the Empire series. The Thrawn trilogy with the Heir of the Empire is the first book in the series. So, if you love science fiction, if you love Star Wars books, you owe it yourself to read this series if you haven't yet. If you have read it, reread it again, because I've read this series probably 4, 5, 6 times. Every time I read it, I get something else out of it. It's just an amazing series. So, that's my favorite book series of all time. In the comment section below, please let me know what was your favorite book series of all time. If you've read any of these book series, please let me know what your opinions of them were. Remember to check out that book review I did on a Star Wars novel recently on We Read Books. I'll put the link to that in the description box below. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you the next time.